Please ignore the fact that at some point during this discussion, I start calling the episode "Oh Come All You Faithful," despite the fact that at the very beginning I referred to it by its correct title, "Oh Come On All You Faithful." I don't know why I suddenly decided to call it the incorrect name. My apologies for that. "Oh Come On All You Faithful" is the first special in season 36 of The Simpsons. I am kind of kicking myself because Disney Plus did have this in the UK at Christmas time, and I didn't watch it because I thought it was just a random episode from the middle of season 36. And while it is technically released alongside episodes of season 36, it's not part of the main numbers. And having watched it, I can say this was significantly more emotional than I thought it was going to be. This is directed by Matthew Faughnan and Debbie Bruce Mahan, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it starts off with Derren Brown visiting Springfield, and we have a brief look at some of the other residents, and then he talks with Marge, telling her that he's going to manipulate the town into making them believe they're feeling more festive. And one of the first people he's going to do this with is Homer, who is struggling to buy a gift because he's not very good at gift giving. So he tries to hypnotize Homer to make him better at this, and he accidentally makes Homer believe he is Santa Claus. And we see the effect on Springfield. Everybody's really happy. Ralph is his elf. Ralph looks absolutely adorable. And then Derren Brown takes Homer on stage. The rest of Springfield is watching in the audience, and he makes him unhypnotized. Which is a shame, because I feel like they could have done a little bit more with that. But that being said, the rest of the episode is still pretty great. And Derren Brown talks about this Santa cult and why they all collectively followed Santa. And then this is when things got kind of dark and a little emotional, and I wasn't expecting it to take this direction. Ned, having listened to Derren Brown, suddenly questions whether there is a God. And it was so dark, and Ned then thinks more about this, and he questions, well, if there is a God, why has he taken 2 wives for me? And it got even heavier when he was talking about how usually he will send text messages to Edna's phone, as he used to do, and he'd leave a post-it note on the mirror every morning for Maud to see. And then he said that morning he didn't put the post-it there on the mirror because there was nobody to see it, and it kind of broke my heart a bit. And then Bart isn't feeling very festive. And we get a brief look at him faking dancing to the Charlie Brown song, which I wish that lasted a few more seconds, but it really didn't need to be, but I quite liked it. But Ralph still believes that Homer is Santa. And Homer believes that maybe he can't be the real Santa, but maybe he can be Santa to Springfield, which is a really lovely thought. I thought that was really, really sweet. And then it gets a little heavier again. Ned eats without saying grace. Rod and Todd are horrified by this. But he says, no, this year you can have some toys. Instead of giving toys to those in need, well, maybe they're doing that as well, but you can have toys for Christmas. And Rod and Todd said something that I thought was quite interesting. And I love this. They said, I guess we're the unfortunate now because we don't have a God. And I agree with that to an extent. I would never call somebody unfortunate if they don't have a religious belief, because I think that that's quite judgmental, actually. But at the same time, I do know that having religious beliefs makes me feel so much more comforted during darker times, and I couldn't imagine not having a religious belief when times are hard, because there we have hope. And Ned is basically realising that might not be there, which is absolutely heartbreaking. And we see Rod and Todd looking through the toy catalogue, and suddenly their behaviours change really drastically, which might be a bit extreme, but nevertheless I think there is a good point to be made there. We then get some really upbeat music, it's really lively, and then it gets dark again, and we kind of spend the episode going back and forth with festive merriment, and then much heavier moments. And I think that actually it never felt jarring. I think they got the balance just right. And then Milhouse comes out of the TV as Samara from The Ring, which I wasn't expecting at all. And I absolutely love that. We have a sweet moment between Ralph and Homer, as Ralph helps Homer get out of the little jail cell. And then we hear Oh Holy Night. We do have several Christmas songs throughout this, and we have The Sound of Oh Holy Night as Ned walks through the streets, and it was genuinely emotional. I started to well up at that point. It was moving up until this point, but that's when it started to really, really hit me. I didn't care for the moments with Professor Frink and Ned. I just thought it was a little boring, definitely not as festive. I didn't think it was the right decision, but it did leave Ned realizing or believing that a miracle had happened, and it restored his faith in God and his religion. So I think that was definitely the right way to take things. If it had gone in a direction that ended with Ned still not having his faith, I don't think that would have worked very well, because I think the message then would have been, this isn't real and it's all just fabricated, and I would have hated that. That being said, it did seem like for a second that's the direction in which they were going, as we learned that almost everything that Ned had just experienced had been orchestrated by Derren Brown to help restore his faith, because it was never Derren Brown's intention to say, your religion is false, don't believe it. But obviously that was the effects of what had happened. And I think that maybe, I wonder if, I'm purely speculating, but I wonder if that's something Derren Brown is very conscious of, as he does make an effort to prove that things can be explained rather than just explained by a religious belief. I wonder if he is very conscious that people could lose their faith as a result of that, and that can have detrimental effects, as we see with Ned. So I think there's maybe, at least within the episode, for the character of Derren Brown, there was a bit of damage control there, which I think was the right thing to do. And it wasn't all orchestrated by him. There were things that couldn't be explained. So the episode wasn't outright saying, well, these miracles happened, but actually it was all orchestrated by Derren Brown. There were some things that weren't explained. And I think that was definitely a nice way to have a bit of balance there while doing some damage control within the context of the episode. And it was really interesting. As I said, I wasn't expecting it to be this heavy. Granted, there are other episodes of The Simpsons, Christmas episodes, that do get quite emotional. So it's not like I was expecting it to just be all merry and jolly, but it was a lot darker and heavier than I thought it was going to be. And that's not a criticism, simply an observation. And yeah, I'm kicking myself that I didn't watch it back in, I assume, December when it came to Disney Plus, because I had just assumed that for some reason Disney Plus had just a random episode of season 36. But nevertheless, I have watched it now. And I'm pleased to say that Oh Come All Ye Faithful was an enjoyable roller coaster. If an episode of The Simpsons didn't need to be a double feature, honestly, I'd say yes. I'm quite a fan of not double features. For me, it takes a good episode for me to enjoy it being double the length of a classic episode. And with this one, time went by so quickly that I was surprised when it finished. It did not feel like a double feature, which to me is absolutely a positive sign. And ultimately, I came away from it feeling suitably festive, ignoring the fact that I'm watching this in April. Thankfully, I do watch Christmas films all year round, but nevertheless, I left it feeling festive, satisfied, a little emotional, and at the end of it, very happy to recommend it. Oh Come All Ye Faithful is definitely a very decent episode of The Simpsons.